Hello, I've got another multi-tool. This is the Leatherman Super Tool. This is the original Leatherman Super Tool that was made not long after the release of the Leatherman PST. I think that the Super Tool was made around 4 years or so after the PST, so it's definitely one of the earlier multi-tools from Leatherman. This was bought off Spock for around £65. It was a gift from my girlfriend because she just loves throwing knives and multi-tools at me. I can't complain. Anyway, we'll start off by having a look around at the leather sheath, because honestly I do really like the leather sheaths, even though I don't carry them. They are nice to have, nice to keep the multi-tool safe. This is the original sheath that it came in. As you can see, it does show some signs of age and wear. The lettering has kind of faded away, at least the paint has. We do have a nice brass rivet with Leatherman stamped into it, and the belt loop is actually almost entirely intact. Now we do have some rust on the rivets here, and there's also some pitting, what looks like pitting on the actual multi-tool itself, which we'll see just shortly. But other than those things, I don't think it was actually carried much. We do have some issues here. You can see where it's stretched. So it is eventually gonna, the leather will eventually become separated from the rivet. That said, at least it doesn't look as bad as this. Yeah, this is the PST in the PST sheath. Anyway, so if we just open up that button snap, which still works absolutely perfectly fine, take out the multi-tool. So this is quite a heavy multi-tool. Maybe not as nowhere near as heavy as the Surge, but it's, I mean, compared to the original Super Tool, actually the Super Tool does actually look, the Super Tool 300 does look quite a bit bigger, but in person, in hand, it doesn't feel like, and it doesn't look like there's too much of a difference. More on that later if I remember. Markins, Leatherman Super Tool, patent pending, Portland, Oregon. I just like to observe these things, these little markings on the tools. Same on the other side, as you can see. We can see these exact same screws today. In fact, if I just bring back the Super Tool 300, and obviously the rebar, the kick, all those multi-tools, the blast, the fuse, all those butterfly opening multi-tools with the tools on the inside, all have these exact same screws. Now I would like to point out that these actually are screws. I think a handful of people do think they're rivets. When I first got into multi-tools, I actually thought these were rivets as well. They are screws. Unfortunately, you can't really open it up yourself. I mean, you can, but there's no bit that you can actually buy. It's unique to Leatherman. Although that said, there is a guy that sells them on eBay and Etsy. I think he's a custom maker of those little spanners. Anyway, that aside, you can see on the sides of the multi-tool, we've got a ruler just like the PST, and if we bring back in the Super Tool 300, you can see at some point they moved the ruler from the side to the face of the multi-tool. I don't know why they did that. I actually prefer it to be on the side there because it just looks a lot nicer. I don't know. I mean, there's more detail when it's on the side as well. If you look there, it's just a nicer ruler. That's just my opinion. Now we could open up the multi-tool. Now you'll notice those pliers actually look a lot like the pliers we know today, but obviously they don't have the removable plier cutters. But if we just take in a few other pairs of pliers that we're familiar with, here's the Leatherman kick, so you can see they actually are quite similar, but obviously the Super Tool is a bit beefier, not too much actually, but you can see it is very similar, and something that pretty much every tool in the multi-tool and EDC world is familiar with, the Leatherman Wave. The Wave is a bit more needle nose like. Not saying that these aren't, but The wave comes to a bit more of a point, but obviously the super tool is a lot more heavy duty than the wave or kick. But I just thought some people would appreciate seeing that side by side. I know I like to see that sort of thing. So it's basically the same pliers as on the wave and on the kick. I know there's ever so slight differences, barely noticeable. But obviously we've got just the standard pliers, so needle, regular, as well as wire cutters, and this little crimping thing at the bottom, which I failed to mention in pretty much all the videos that I make on multi-tools. Again, Leatherman USA. And we'll get to the fun things. So we'll just look at the knives first. So, sorry, we'll look at the tools, I should say. We'll just open up all the tools. So we've got a, I'll look at the knife separately if I remember, but we've got a straight edge knife, we've got an awl, I should probably flip it around. We have an awl that's basically the exact same awl that is on the PST. A medium screwdriver, a large screwdriver, so just like we have on the Super Tool 300 and on the rebar, as well as a metal file that's basically identical to the one that's on the PST, only larger. And I think I'll open up the PST as well for a little comparison. We have a serrated knife that does come to quite the point. This is very different from the knife that's on the Super Tool 300. We have the can opener slash bottle opener, a much earlier version of it. But you can see they kept the same basic design all the way up till the 3 Series. We've got that small screwdriver, we've got the Phillips screwdriver, which again is identical to the PST, and we've got a wood saw. So I'll try and put that there, and I'll just quickly open up the the Super Tool 300, and I'll compare it, and you'll see that it's basically just the exact same tool set, just the Super Tool 300 is obviously a much newer version. Just got one side open. Okay, so if we look here, you can see that the tool set, I don't actually have enough room to work here, but you can see that the tool set is basically the exact same arrangement. We've got a wood saw, we've got a Phillips screwdriver. Obviously this is a massive improvement on the Phillips screwdriver, that's a lot bigger and more sturdy, and you can actually put a bit adapter on there, so you could take regular quarter inch bits. Again, the flat blade screwdriver, although this one is a bit bigger than that one. Leatherman standard can opener, and if you look at the knife blades, if I can get that to focus, nope, I'm in the wrong mode. Totally different knife blades, but it's still in the same arrangement. And same again for the opposite side. I appreciate this isn't a very good image here, for lack of better terminology, but this is the only way I can get them to all fit in. But you can see we've got the file, the all much improved, all the knife blade, etc. So it's basically the exact same tool set on both multi-tools. Now I'll just close everything and I'll just quickly show you something. I did say that some of the tools on the original Super Tool are the exact same as on the Leatherman PST. So I'll just quickly show you the file, which is the exact same thing on both the PST and Super Tool, original Super Tool, but obviously it's much smaller on the PST. Now I'm not going to do that with every tool because you'll probably get quite bored quite quickly if you're not already. But you can see there, they're basically the exact same thing. Truth be told, I'm a fan of both of the files on these. I love both of these multi-tools. This is obviously a lot more pocket friendly, easier to carry, and a lot lighter than the Super Tool. But the Super Tool basically has the same tool options. It's bigger, it's stronger, and it has a few additional tools. Now we'll just quickly look at the knife blades on the Super Tool. So here we've just got a standard drop point, and it is hollow ground. It came to me very sharp. Not that that's really relevant because it is second hand, so the guy must have done it himself. I have a feeling this guy tried to sharpen it, either he rushed it or he doesn't really know what he's doing, because the edge is mirror polished, as you can see. You can see a bit of a reflection, but it's also blurred and it's not actually very sharp, and I've not done anything with it yet. I do really like that blade shape though, and I suppose it would be rude if I didn't at least compare it to the blade on the PST. So we have a very different blade on the PST. That's more of a clip point shape. I do love the blade on both of these. Now the PST doesn't have any kind of lock or safety mechanism. It's just a slip joint. So this you can legally carry in the UK. Some people bring up this argument of it has to be immediately foldable or some nonsense like that. So some people will tell you that multi-tools like the PST and the Kick are not legal to carry. I disagree, because I mean, it's folding. It's just the design. It's just in the way. If you were to poke something with that, it's still going to fold, and if you use enough force, it does that. I don't see how that's any different from safety features on other knives that we're allowed to carry. It just means you don't cut your fingers. It's still not a locking knife. There's not a button. Now, the reason I bring that up is you can't actually fold this. If you'll notice, it won't actually fold. But there's no button, there's no lock. This is quite unusual, I find. You have to open a second tool halfway to allow that to close. Now, that to me is a legal nightmare, and that applies to all the tools on this. Why do I say that's a legal nightmare? Well, there's no button on it. There's no lock mechanism. I guess you could argue that that's a lock mechanism. Oh, I can focus it. But the UK law, at least on the government's website, says a lock knife is a knife that has a button to close, and it does include multi-tools. That is most certainly not a button. This is a button. There's no debating that that is a button to close the knife. Okay, same as on the Surge. That's definitely a button. What about this though? Now, some people will say, well, it locks, you can't carry it. Well, again though, it's not a button. And in fact, another great area that I've seen other people mention is the Opinel. Is the Opinel a lock knife? Well, look here, that is immediately foldable, but it does have the ring lock on it. I personally would say this is not a lock knife. Now, that's just my opinion. Again, it's just a legal nightmare. I usually wouldn't carry an Opinel anyway, but this, not gonna lie, I have carried it a little bit. I've not done anything really naughty, like take it to a pub or anything. I mean, I don't drink anyway, but I mean, if I'm just going out for a little walk around the woods, I'll slip this in my pocket. I mean, well, it's a multi-tool anyway, and there's no button. There's nothing that you could look at on this to confuse it with a button, and it does have a cutting edge of less than 3 inches. So for me and my opinion, and I know that my opinion isn't good enough in a court or if I'm stopped by a policeman, but for me, I do kind of feel okay carrying that. There's no lock. I guess that's something you've got to decide. This is a very big grey area. I mean, if you think the Opinel is a grey area, this is an even bigger grey area, but truth be told, I'm not worried about it. Arresting people or stopping people for having something like this in their pocket is a massive waste of time anyway. It's a waste of my time, it's a waste of the policeman's time. It's just, what's the point? Anyway, that aside, the serrated knife, as I said, is very different from the current model of Super Tool. I've misplaced it. If I just open up the current Super Tool, you'll see that it's a huge difference. It's in the exact same arrangement as the old one. I'm not sure which one I like better. Truth be told, I really like them both. This one I would say is far more aggressive, but the newer one on the Super Tool 300 would lend itself to rescue far greater, because obviously if you have to cut someone's car seatbelt off in the event of a car crash, this one here, the 300 would be a far greater option, because you're less likely to stab them. than something that's much more pointy like this one. That said, if they were in a car crash, you'd probably use anything to get them out. Excuse me. And I can't compare it to the Super Tool, the PST, because the PST doesn't have a second knife. It only has that main straight clip point. So I'll just quickly close this, and I have one other thing to introduce you to if you've made it this long. I'll just close my Super Tool before I cut myself. Put that there. I also have this monstrosity. Now, why am I showing you this piece of cheap Chinese crap against the Leatherman? It's the same thing. This is well, it's not the same thing, but this is a copy of the Leatherman Super Tool. When I first saw this, I thought, they copied the PST, beefed it up, and gave it a few more tools. And it wasn't until I got the Super Tool, the original Super Tool, I realised, oh, they just straight up copied the Super Tool. Not very well though. Not that long after I got it, maybe about 6 months or so, the screw fell out, and I lost it, so I can't repair it. Not only that, that is god bloody awful. And not to mention this. Now, what do you expect for a cheap piece of Chinese crap? This was £20 out of Homebase. Truth be told, £20 is too much for this. It is awful. It's way too long, way too long ago to return it. But I mean, you can see it's almost a direct carbon copy. If I open this up, that's how wide it is. I mean, that's monumentally uncomfortable. Even down to the little lanyard ring, they've copied it. Only it's on a different side. But you can see the pliers are very identical. They're just not ground as nicely. If we open up the tools, look at that. It's the exact same serrated blade. Although this blade looks a bit more like the one off the PST, but again, does that not look familiar? But obviously, if you do happen to come across this monstrosity in the shop, I recommend you just not buy it, because it's absolutely crap. Unless you want to somehow tinker with it. I mean, look at that screwdriver. It just looks like a crappy version of the PST and Super Tool screwdriver. It's very identical. I mean, unless you're willing to put a lot of work into it, I wouldn't bother buying this. It's very stiff. It's uncomfortably stiff to use. And the last thing I do want to point out is, remember what I was saying about that locking mechanism on the Super Tool? Well, at least it actually does lock. At least it actually works. This doesn't. Although it is quite stiff. That said, this is a much friendlier option if you do want to carry it in the UK. That's definitely not locking, because you could just close it straight away with one hand. And oh my, I'm starting to wonder actually why the hell I've kept this thing. I don't like throwing things out, but my god, that is bad. Well, anyway, put that piece of shit off to the side. Anyway, I've probably blabbered on and off and taken up enough of your time if you've made it this far. Anyway, thanks for watching. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments. I've got other knives to make videos of. I've got a Victorinox Electrician. I've got some other Alok Swiss Army knives that I've recently acquired. Knives in general, and I do have some airsoft replicas to make videos on as well. Mostly airsoft pistols. So if you like airsoft, you like guns, you like that sort of thing, stick around on the channel. Anyway, I'll see you later. Thank you for watching.